The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Oosterhuis here with RealAgriculture.com. We are back here today and we are out in the field with a Canola School episode, and I have here with me Autumn Barnes, who's an agronomy specialist with the Canola Council of Canada. How's it going today?
Wonderful. Nice to be in the field and not getting blown over by wind.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we are in southern Alberta, so the wind has been a little fierce lately. So we're here today to talk about stand establishment. Canola's starting to come through the ground. We're seeing the cotyledons. What sorts of things are you telling producers right now when it comes to stand establishment?
Yeah, so I think today we're going to be talking a bit about emergence and assessing establishment, which is arguably one of the more important things to do, and you can do it while you're doing other things in the field as well. So really just getting an idea of how many plants per square foot or square meter you have, and why you have that. So using those numbers in the canola calculator, which is a really cool tool where you can figure out from your 1,000 seed weight and your seeding rate and your plant density what your percentage of seeds emerged actually are. So, you know, in the prairies we see between 45 and 65% average emergence on a given year across the prairies, and well, this year it's kind of a small sample size so far and plants are still pretty young, but there's been some pretty great numbers across the south just because we had some really timely rain followed by some warmth and canolas popping up. Unfortunately, that brings other issues like flea beetles, which everybody's talking about right now. So yeah, really, I guess right now we're just going to talk about assessing emergence, what you want to look for, how many plants are there, some of the problems that are there, why you have those plants, and maybe looking at what you can do to make that better.
So before we actually get into counting the plants, can you talk about the importance of keeping track of that year to year and how you can help evaluate your emergence going forward?
Yeah, so record keeping is really important. It's maybe like the unsung hero of agronomy. I don't know, maybe that's an overstatement, but you know, I don't have a great memory, and I have like books and books and books from my years as an agronomist, and there's lots of different higher tech, better ways to keep tabs if you're a farmer who has multiple fields that you want to follow throughout the year. But really, I mean, a lot of years, emergence and moisture are really strongly linked, right? If it gets rained, a lot of mistakes can get covered up. So it's really important to keep those records and remember that, you know, on the dry years you saw, you know, maybe your fertilizer was a little bit too hot, your emergence was down. You know, maybe you made some mistakes at seeding and you seeded too deep, or you were going too fast and you got a lot of fertilizer bumping into that seed row or vice versa. So really keeping record of that. And then even just from the basics, like how many plants per square foot you like on your farm. So if you have more of a tolerance for risk, and you're okay with maybe you've got some cleaner fields with not as many weeds in them, so you're okay with a thinner stand, maybe you'll go lower in that recommended range. And the recommended range for canola density is 5 to 8 plants per square foot, and that's the Canola Council of Canada number. So we really want growers to be targeting 5 to 8 plants per square foot. And some growers might want to be in the low end of that range, 5 to 6 plants, and some of them, you know, if they have less of an appetite for risk, they might want to be on the higher end. So if you have some fields where you're in the higher end and you really like the way that looks, that might be something you want to continue. Or maybe there's specific fields that you know you have a weed problem in, and so you want to make sure that those always stay on the higher end of that range. That's a good thing to record, and vice versa with the low ends.
So when producers are actually going out and they're walking their fields, how do you recommend they're taking a plant stand?
So I really love plant count hoops just because I'm a fiddler, and I really like fiddling with them and walking with them. They're also really great if you're like me and don't have childcare during all this COVID nonsense, because it's really entertaining for children to walk around and throw them at each other or whatever. So just walk and toss it. My hoops are 1/4 meter squared, so you would just multiply by 4 to get plants per meter squared. You really, like, you could use any size hoop. You just want it big enough to include a few rows. So I know some growers who have, or agronomists who have 2 square foot hoops, and you really just go back to your basic geometry to get the measurements for that, or you can go on the Canola Encyclopedia to get the measurements to get a 2 square foot or a 1/4 meter squared hoop.
How many different, I mean, it depends obviously on field size, but on a quarter section or something, what are you recommending that they're going, how many times should you be throwing that hoop?
Oh, lots, like as many as you can. So right now we're in the corner of a field. We're in the headlands. This is not where we actually want to be counting. We'd want to be further out. but we're going to hold off for a little while. Really, you want to be taking counts in at least ideally 5 different spots in the field, but please don't do one, and please don't keep your numbers on the headlands. So what you want to do is walk and then toss the hoop. And the cool thing about hoops that I really like, but you could really use whatever else to throw around, is the fact that it's a little bit random. So when I walk through a field, I just tend to get drawn to like the really bad stuff or the really good stuff. And the hoop, like the way it bounces, it'll kind of, well, that one actually went exactly where I was throwing it. But they go in sort of different directions, and they might bounce around, then you walk to it. So really, like what I would do is walk, throw a hoop, take the count, write it down, throw it again, do it a few times in one area, and then average those numbers out. And then you can go walk, either you're walking a big W through the field, or you get back in your truck and you go around. I mean, if you have a quad and you're scouting that way, then you can. For sanitation, in my organization, we don't drive in fields, but I know lots that do. So really, it's about getting a good representative average. So then you get your average plant density for the field. If you have specific regions of the field, like there might be, in the past few years we saw like better emergence in all the lower spots that were wetter in southern Alberta, and so you might want to keep that separate. That the lower spots had this emergence and the higher, drier spots had a little bit lower. And then from your truck or when you're back in the office, you can then sit down and plug those numbers into the canola calculator and then get your actual emergence. So kind of those 2 pieces of information that are really important to record in the springtime when the crop's coming up.
And what's another big thing you're looking for when you are doing these stand establishment and plant counts?
Yeah, so really anything that's stressing the plants. So right now, I mean, flea beetles are really obvious. They're very visual when they're there. And they can be kind of scary. So flea beetles are a really good one, making sure that you understand what 25% defoliation looks like. And the hoops are really helpful for that as well, like for actually getting random samples of flea beetles, because flea beetles are pretty easy to go walk to where they are and kind of stay in those areas because they're bad and leave with this really terrible picture of what the field looks like. But in that sense, they can get really bad. It's important to understand. So insects like flea beetles, if you're seeing some notches or some plants that look like they've sort of been like chopped off and are wilted over, those could be cutworms. Looking for issues that are, mechanical issues. So if you've got strips from the field or through the field or striping of lower emergence or better emergence, or missing plants, missing rows, that could be plugged rows. It could be issues with fertilizer. It could be issues with a sprayer. Mother Nature doesn't really work in straight lines very well, so those are kind of generally a good indicator that you've got something going on mechanically, or something with what you've done. It's also a good idea to check soil moisture if you've got a Dutch auger or even just a shovel to dig down and see where moisture is at. Gosh, what else? Even residue. I mean, this field doesn't have too much for residue in it, but I've definitely been in some fields this year that have they were rushed to harvest last year and maybe didn't do a great job chopping it up. Weeds are another really good one. This spring, pre-seed burn-off was a bit of a rush. A lot of it was pre-emergent, so after the crop got seeded. In this particular field, just from walking around, there's quite a bit of little kochia coming up. And in some of the other fields I've been in this year, there's weeds that are starting to get ahead of the crop. So really just looking at weeds, seeing what you've got there, kind of assessing the quality of your pre-seed burn down, or if you've already done one in-crop pass, then what the quality of that was, looking for any product issues. One thing I didn't mention is when we're counting plants, we really want to record that final number at 2 to 4 leaf stage. So this that we're in now, and I think we'll have some shots of it, we've got a couple true leaves, but I wouldn't write this down as a final number for density. And we'll actually dig as well to see if there's more coming. This particular area of southern Alberta got quite a bit of rain a couple weeks ago, and so there's potentially some crusting and some canola that's going to be popping up.
Okay, awesome. Anything else you'd like to add?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.